What did that? That's weird. But anyhow, the first thing I thought was it's mighty funny that we are calling Lieutenant Billup's mama an old adversary. Then as I went on, I didn't read anything in the lead up to Where Pleasant Mountains Lie, so I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't spoil myself, so to speak. I had a bad week last week, so I really didn't do a whole lot of much of anything. So I read next to nothing, telling me what to expect, and I was pleasantly surprised that we got some Jeffrey Combs in this episode. And I'm reading from the notes that I took for last week's live stream. And let me tell you, wait a minute. So let me tell you what my thoughts were last week. I said Jeffrey Combs was playing an old evil ass, instigating ass, sentient ass computer named Agamus. And now I like that character for him. I enjoyed it. I hope that we haven't seen the end of this computer. Hopefully he could be like a baddie in season 3. That we can put him with, now that he's with these other sentient computers who have been captured and have been stored at the Daystrom Institute, that possibly we can see Jeffrey Combs return as Agamus, because I'd like to get some more of that. Thank you. I was also afraid that I was going to have to watch Billups have sex. It's like they jumped this entire episode off. Like, yeah, the way that he be forced to take the crown, the throne of his Hesperia, I think was the name of the planet, was whenever he had sex. And I'm like, why has it always got to come back to this? Are we teenage kids? Like, why does it have to keep coming back to the sex? So I was afraid I was going to have to watch Billups have sex in this episode. I was like, please, no. Please, no. I don't want it. I don't even want to imagine it. But here we are. I definitely did not want to see it. It was kind of cool seeing Billups' background explored a little bit more. This is something that Lower Decks seems to be doing far better than Disco. We know a little something about quite a few of the background characters by season 2 that we're in right now. And with Disco, we're heading into season 4. And we still don't know a bunch about the bridge crew. And that, to me, is a problem. But it's a Disco problem. It's not Lower Decks problem. So we learned that Billups is the heir to the throne of Hesperia, and their culture is kind of like a fantasy video game, or like going to, what was the name of that place that we used to go to? Medieval times. Yes, it's like going to medieval times and living there. So Hesperia is a Federation planet. So I'm wondering if that is live action Trek canon as well. Like this planet and its people are Federation citizens, and they could show up in a live action version of Star Trek. I wouldn't mind seeing it. The Queen, Billups' mom, is trying to trick him into losing his virginity, because that is an automatic ascension to the throne. Now I can't understand why or how that whole thing works, but that's what it is. It is what it is. And of course, when Billups is called to his mom's ship to fix the engines, he's expecting her to try to catch him slipping. And he taps Rutherford to assist him after explaining to everybody that this is what it is. I'm a virgin pretty much. And when I go on this ship, I know my mama is going to try to get somebody to throw some at me. So he's letting everybody know, and then he taps Rutherford, hey, you come with me. So now Rutherford is a little apprehensive because he believes that they have this superior engine, a superior warp drive, that this is a different type of system, and he's afraid he's not going to know how to fix these the parts. Well, we find out is that it's the exact same kind of system. They just call everything something different. So it's still a warp core. You know what I'm trying to say. A warp core. It's still a warp core. The engines are still the same. They just are calling them something different that fits kind of with their culture. So once we get past that, and of course a pep talk from Tendi, who tells him, you need to step outside of your box. You need to do things that you're uncomfortable with sometimes. You need to take risks. And this is a risk, and it's a worthy one, because you're still going to have Billups there with you in case you need help. You just go and get this experience, Rutherford. She pushed her friend over to the Hysperion ship, and when he got over there, he had two roles. Role number one was to help Billups fix the ship. Role number two is to not let Billups sleep with anybody. And this is just so weird to me that it's a constant angle of Star Trek Lower Decks, is that when is somebody on this ship gonna get them some? Of course, hijinks ensue, of course, and then they get this engine fixed, and Billups is so freaking proud. He thinks his mother is finally looking at him and seeing the worth of what he's doing over on the Cerritos. He goes back to the Cerritos, and while he is there, looking out of the windows, we see the engine section of the Hysperion vessel, go kablooey. So it didn't take a rocket scientist to realize what was about to happen next. It was very predictable from this point on. We got his mama, who will remind you an awful lot of Lwaxana Troi, and the way that she is trying to manipulate her son into a sexual experience, pretty much the same way Troy's mother did on the Star Trek The Next Generation. But again, it's quite predictable what was going to happen after that vessel blew up. Now, the Boimler and Mariner arc was an exploration of the dynamic of their friendship. When the instigating ass, evil ass, sentient ass computer, Agamas, tells Boimler that Mariner pretty much hated on him to ransom, there was an opportunity for these two characters to duke it out, and duke it out they did. The computer, again voiced by Jeffrey Combs, was basically trying to drive a wedge between them, because he felt like the weaker link between Mariner and Boimler was Boimler, and that he would be able to manipulate Boimler into plugging him into a mainframe so that he could take over whatever world they were on. It looked like a Ceti Alpha. It looked like the planet, because I'm trying to remember. It looked like the planet that Khan got exiled to. That's what that planet looked like. But so they're fighting, Boimler and Mariner. They actually have a physical scuffle, and they exchange some heated words. Boimler was telling Mariner exactly how he felt about her meddling and all of that, and then the little fight ended with him pulling out his phaser and stunning her. Which I was like, wow, he really did it. He shot her ass. But okay, so now the computer, Agamas, is feeling like, I'm about to get my way. He's about to plug me in to a network, and I am about to start wreaking havoc on this section of the galaxy. By the end of this episode, well, before we get there, now, I think that Mariner is doing all this hating on Boimler because she's afraid of losing her status within their friendship. She refuses to accept that Boimler is growing in his skills and is becoming a more proficient Starfleet officer. But by the end of this episode, when Boimler double crosses the evil ass, sentient ass computer, she finds out that Brad is far more capable than she is giving him credit for. Now, because I've got the benefit of having listened to Discussing Trek and their discussion about this episode, I can say that she might also be in this situation where she's afraid that he's going to leave again. That he is going to get the confidence that he needs to realize that the Cerritos, that there's more to Starfleet than the Cerritos, and that he will go back to the Titan or to another ship. Now, what I don't think she realizes is that Boimler already knows this. Boimler knows that there's more to Starfleet than the Cerritos, and he's already been on the Titan. But what I think is that he knows that he wants to be on the Cerritos. He's where he wants to be, even though he has plans for his own upward mobility. He has the knowledge that there's more to Starfleet than the Cerritos, but I'm not about that life. And this is where my friends are. And this is probably where my best friend is. And being Mariner. Even though they are two very different people, that's pretty much what makes a very good friendship. So I'm looking at the tension in that situation, in that relationship between... Come in. Come on. Come on. Come on, Pukadillo. Come here and say hi to my live stream.
Oh.
That ain't nobody on here just yet. But you can say hi to the camera.
Who wants to say hi to?
Just say hi to the camera.
Hey. Bye.
Okay, Pukadilla. That was my Pook. But anywho. Okay, so she finds out that Brad is more than capable of holding his own in the situation with Agamas and across the board. It seems like Boimler has grown, and these are the things that I keep talking about. Like we get some bullshit. Excuse my French. We get some bullshit in this whole sex angled episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. We get some BS, but we also get forward movement in the development of our characters, our Lower Decks characters, like Boimler. And we also see Mariner is uncertain of her relationship with Boimler, while Boimler is becoming a far more proficient Starfleet officer. And then we see, going back to the Hysperion ship, we see Rutherford, or Tendi finds out that Rutherford was supposedly in that section of the ship that exploded, the Hysperion ship. And we see her get very emotional because she did not want to lose Rutherford again. She has already lost him once. She could not accept losing him again. So she sought out his cybernetic implant and went to that Hysperion ship to find him. And when she found him, he was very much alive. Now, in the meantime, while this is happening, Billups is feeling guilty about the state that his planet will be in without a ruler, since his mother was presumed to have been in the section of the ship that exploded. So he was like, well, I got to take the throne now. So you know what that means. He had to get prepared for sex. And that's kind of what I wasn't looking forward to. I was not looking forward to seeing him with anybody sexually. But once Tendi got to Rutherford, they were able to find Billups before he did the deed, because thankfully, it takes a little while for Billups to get ready. Billups was not born ready like a lot of men. Billups takes a little time. So we averted the sex. And Billups, again, he realized his mom was willing to go to any length to get him to do the deed so that he could take the throne. Now, I don't know why she is in such a hurry for him to take the throne. It's kind of like, what's in it for her if he is able to take the throne over from her, where she doesn't have to be queen anymore, so she can do something. I don't get why sex is the thing that makes a difference. Like, okay, if once you have sex, you become the monarch, does that mean like once you are the monarch that you can't have sex anymore? So is it like his mother wants to have sex, so she is trying to get him on the throne? I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't even want to understand it, because there were a million different ways that we could have come to this same point in this same episode without harping on the sexual aspect of things. But as it stands, that's what they rolled with, and I can't particularly argue with that. Again, are you knocking again? These kids. I can't say anything. This is the first time I've ever been interrupted. The kids don't normally interrupt me when they hear me in here talking to myself. So anyhow, this episode, while we got a little insight into the relationships of Mariner and Boimler, of Billups and his people, and with Tendi and Rutherford, because I'm coming back to that with Tendi and Rutherford. This episode was more or less filler to me. And I know that it's almost impossible to have an animated filler episode, because it takes an awful lot of time to do the animation for these shows. This is not something that happens in 1 or 2 weeks. It takes a lot of planning on their part to do the animation, but it does feel like a filler episode, besides us getting a little bit of clarity or a little more insight in what Tendi and Rutherford and Boimler and Mariner's relationships look like. Now, what I got out of the Tendi and Rutherford arc of this story is that Tendi is in love with Rutherford, and I think I've said this before, that she considers herself his person, and she wants him to consider her to be his person. So basically, it's unrequited right now. It's unrequited love, and I've been there, Tendi. I understand that there is somebody, your best friend, that you might have a little bit more than a best friend feeling for, and then but you don't want to damage this friendship by coming on too strong, or you're not 100% sure that this is what you need to be. This is really how you're feeling in the first place. But Tendi needs to either come clean with Rutherford, because that's what it looks like to me. It looks like we are shipping Tendi and Rutherford. And if we do, I'm here for it. Just as long as we don't explore no sex with these two characters. In fact, with any of these main characters. If any of these main characters end up in a relationship with one another, I really hope that we don't go the obvious juvenile route of making it all about sex. Because so far, there's been an awful lot of sex talk in season 2. We can go back to me talking about the guys over at Discussing Trek. One of the hosts made an observation weeks ago about there being an awful lot of innuendo in this season. And of course, at first, I didn't pay attention to all of that. I did not notice it. And like the week that he said this, the next episode was Mugato Gamato. And we did get an awful lot of sexual innuendo in that episode. And there have been little double entendres that could go both ways, things that are said or looks, even with Billup's mother, because this civilization is this whole medieval type of civilization. Her costuming was one thing, but the fact that her boobs was pushed completely up to her freaking chin, that's something entirely different. I was looking at even that as, okay, even the way we are looking at this cartoon mother of Billup's, it's like we've sexualized that. And I know breasts are not inherently a sexual thing, but when you make your whole conversation about sex, them boobies look a little different. When you talk about feeding a baby, boobs are one thing, but when you're talking about the only way that you can take the throne is by having sex, and then you throw some boobies in the mix, boobies mean something entirely different. Boobies are really different things at that point. So there was a lot to like and a lot to just be like, this is more of the same about this episode. So therefore, on my scale of 1 to 5 for this episode, I gave it a 2.5 because, again, for me, half of this episode was stuff that we needed and stuff that I liked, particularly the Agama stuff. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed him being his sentient ass, evil ass, instigating ass self, and I also enjoyed watching Mariner and Boimler kind of, I guess, their feelings came to a head. It hasn't come to a complete head because we don't know for sure what it is that Mariner is afraid of. But I do know that this is what it seems like to me, that she's afraid of losing her friend. And then the same thing goes with Tendi and Rutherford. Tendi is afraid of losing her friend in any way, shape, or form. But it seems like Tendi is far more connected to Rutherford, and that him being there is what makes her feel a little more whole, I guess. She's done an awful lot this season to establish her loyalties and to establish the fact that she feels super connected to Rutherford, Boimler, and Mariner. But at the end of it all, the closeness, the more close couple in this, to me, is Rutherford and Tendi. And that is kind of disheartening, kind of okay. Again, because we're doing a lot of sophomore type shit. I'm not particularly, I'm not excited to see where this team takes Tendi and Rutherford, because they seem to go for the as Clarence from Discussing Trek put it, they seem to go for the low-hanging fruit quite a bit. And the low-hanging fruit in any relationship is to make it all sexual. It doesn't have to be. And so yeah, that's why I kind of don't want to see it. And also because when we start throwing relationships in the mix, then the stories start to become more about the relationships and less about the individuals and their independence. It's like instead of saying Tendi did this and Rutherford did that, we get into this Trutherford or this Rindy situation, and I don't want them to lose their individuality because they become a couple. And it would be the same thing if Mariner and Boimler were to become a couple, which some people are hinting at as well. If they do, again, I can't see it happening because Mariner is such a strong character. But what if they get together and we lose Boimler in that situation? And again, I don't want them to become so attached at the hip that when you mention one, you have to mention the other. They have all had their individual stories, and but maybe not individuals. Glad you're seeing more of the positive. Makes me feel bad about my 1.5. Oh, don't feel bad. I had already written this, and that's the crazy thing. It's like, okay, I wrote this. I wrote it up as a 2.5. You guys maybe have convinced me that it should be lower, but I'm rolling with my initial thoughts because, it would be in disingenuous of me to change because you said something. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I see it. But I really and truly don't want to see the relationship aspect take away from us progressing in this as characters individually. I think they handled it in Voyager kind of well with B'Elanna and Tom when they got in a relationship, but I still think that in this particular show, if these characters get in a relationship, the writers and the directors are going to use this to do some messed up stuff with these cartoon characters, and I'm not really for it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to think about it. I know they're going to do it because it's too easy not to. And Clarence, while you're there, I was listening to you guys last night, and I was hearing, John. He said that maybe they realized that this worked in Magado Gamato, so they're just going to keep rolling with it. And I'm thinking they had this stuff planned in the off season. They knew that sex was going to be what they was rolling with this season because it takes too long to animate a series. They couldn't have changed what their plans were in the middle of the series because this was already animated. It was already together. So that's like where I didn't agree with Jonathan. But for the most part, you guys hit it on the head. It's becoming real juvenile to keep talking about the sex aspect of things as a joke, as a gag, and to sexualize even his culture, Billup's culture. So we've sexualized his culture. We've sexualized his mom because, like I said, she had her tatas was sitting up to her chin. You're right. It seems like a conscious effort. I think it is because it had to have been planned last season when they were doing the animation. They had to plan for this crap, and nobody said maybe we should scale things back. Are they trying to grow this TV show up? And I know that it's supposed to be more of a mature TV show, but then I looked at the beginning for no reason because, again, I didn't know that we were walking into the Hornet's Nest again this week. And it was like, okay, TV 14. So that means 14 and up. I don't know how anybody else feels. I got a niece. And I ain't gonna say we like the same things. She likes what I like. So anything to just kick it with her auntie. So when me and her get together, these are the kinds of things we do. Do you think I want to sit down with my 13-year-old niece? I know that she knows far more than I'm giving her credit for But I don't want. I feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable with that. And so for it to be rated TV 14, to placing all this emphasis on sex, it kind of makes me feel like there is an ulterior motive with all this talk. Now I can jump into conspiracy theory territory, but there's an ulterior motive with all this talk, and I just don't know what it is. I don't know how the season is going to continue to play out because of their fascination with coitus. You would think nowadays, after Me Too, Cosby, and Kelly, they'd scale that back. Right. Okay. Is there something wrong with sex? You know, if you like it, I love it. However, because they're not showing anything that would, you know what, though? I'm going to cut myself off because you are completely right. Because if, for instance, Billups was being forced by his mother to have sex. He thought that the only way that he was going to be able to take the throne after losing his mother was to have sex. He was being manipulated. And that's pretty much what Cosby and Kelly and all the Weinstein and Epstein and all these other people that are freaking predators, they all were manipulative. Some of them used drugs and other means to manipulate people, but at the end of the day, it's still manipulation. And yeah, Billups, if he would have ended up having sex, now we can walk around with picket signs saying that his mother was wrong for forcing her son, no matter how old he is and no matter what the end game was for her. You don't force your kids to do something they don't want to do as adults, especially sex. Why was that so important to this culture? I don't get it, but it is. The more I think about it, this is like that Cosby and Kelly, Weinstein and Epstein and everybody else that was involved with this crap, because it starts with the manipulation. And you would think they scale it back. I don't know where we're going this season. I gave it a 2.5 because of the things that I did like about this episode. I did like Boimler and Mariner duking it out a bit. Not the physical part, because even that was kind of strange to me. Like, dang, so y'all just going straight to fisticuffs. And it's not, again, it's not to say that this doesn't happen in reality, but it was unprovoked. It was just a bunch of conversation, and then all of a sudden, he leaps up out of his skin. Even though we know Mariner can handle it, he jumped on her and shot her. So yeah, don't keep talking to me, Clarence, because this is becoming less and less a 2.5 for me the more me and you talk. But yeah, and it's just insane that it did come out the same week as that decision for the R. Kelly thing. It's just, yeah, I think they need to steer away from the sex if you're going to be a TV 14 show. Hey, Angus Osano, they must have had a very bad king who was a virgin. I still, yeah, this is the problem with this, that we have to say they must have. We got no explanation as to why it was so important that you lose your virginity. Because to me, unless, like I said earlier in the live, unless once you become king or queen, you have to stop having sex, then I can see how that could be a problem for his mom, who's getting to that age probably where, you start to maybe want to. I mean, I don't know. Maybe she wants to have sex and can't because she's a monarch. So the only way that she can maybe have sex is if somebody else takes the throne. If that's it, I wish they would have said it. And it's still is tying this entire culture to sex, so I don't get it. And like I said, his mother was pretty progressive uh, with the means, the way she was willing to go about getting Billups to have sex. Uh, she was throwing everything at him, men, women. They was literally throwing it at him, and he has to deflect and all of this stuff. And even they are being manipulated. It's not like they want to have sex with him. The queen is telling them, "Make my son have sex with you." So I'm Clarence, you started something with me. I'm thinking too much, and I'm not supposed to think when I'm watching this show. We've come to that. I'm supposed to go in and just blankly stare at the TV screen and get nothing out of it. But here I'm getting manipulation. I'm getting a sexual agenda, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think it's necessary, and again, not for a TV 14 audience. There is a TV MA audience, which if I sit down with my niece and I see that this has mature content in it, and I say, "Oh, well, let's sit down and watch this anyway," then I signed up to be sitting and being uncomfortable with this kid. But right now, it says TV 14. That's in her age range. I don't know what they talk about at 14 these days, but I don't want it to be, I don't want to be forced into a conversation with my nieces and nephews about sex that I'm particularly not ready to have. They might be ready to have it. I'm not. So, I'm gonna leave my score the way I had it, because I don't want to be reneging. But this wasn't the best episode, and again, I don't think it was the worst. The parts that were okay were okay. Like I do like to see Tendi how she emotes when it's about Rutherford, and I do like to see Rutherford get the nerve and the backbone and the spine to have confidence in himself, even when something may go wrong. And I like the fact that Boimler is growing as a character. So, things that I like. And of course, Jeffrey Combs can come back whenever he wants to. He's played so many different characters that I wouldn't mind him coming back every episode as a different character. That's just me. Angus, if you're still hanging out, what did you think of this episode? What were your thoughts? Because I'm torn. I'm torn. Clarence made some pretty good points. In fact, the discussing Trek team did a pretty good job discussing this episode. And of course, the things that I agree on, I agree wholeheartedly. And then there's some things that I don't agree with. And, that's why I like watching it. They don't always say what I want to hear on their show, But anywho, let me see how long have I been chatting it up here. 40 minutes. I think 40 minutes was long enough for this episode. I see that tomorrow's episode is leaning towards Mirror Universe stuff, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm not sure that we need a Mirror Universe in Lower Decks. This I Excretus, and the titles is just the titles. So, I Excretus is a Mirror Universe type episode, and I don't know if the Lower Deckers are going to be the bridge crew and the bridge crew are going to be the Lower Deckers. I don't know how this is going to go. I guess I'm interested in seeing, and I guess. So Angus says, it was predictable and all because she wanted to retire. I know what you meant. All because she wanted to retire. Okay, that's what I'm saying. If you want to retire, I mean, I don't know. Is it just that's it? He just got to have sex? That doesn't explain to me why sex is part of the agreement, part of what happens when you ascend to the throne. Why does it have to be tied to sex? Why can't he just go to the throne the way he is? Of course, he doesn't want to, but in most cultures, it doesn't matter what you want. That sounds like The Rock. It doesn't matter what you want. But yeah, it doesn't matter. You know, you go to the throne or whatever. I think again it was juvenile, and like you said, mostly predictable. Once he got over on the ship and his mother started sending people to throw it at him, and he still was not going for it, she had to go. Desperate time leads to desperate measures, and that's where she decided we're going to do this explosion thing. But yeah, it just, we'll see. We shall see when with Billups. Again, one thing I got to give them credit for is that they do give us a background on these characters who are not the main focus, our lower deckers. We got a little bit of history on quite a few characters. So as a sign of maturity, can't have that V. I mean, okay, there are some people who are wired to not want to have sex. So now what? Are they immature? If he was considering himself to be an asexual person, is he immature? Or is it a sign of maturity to say, I don't want to have sex, therefore that's why I don't do it? I'm more mature, or I would be less mature if I just kept sleeping with people knowing that I'm not getting anything out of this. It's an immature thing to think that that maturity is tied to sexuality. I don't know. Again, we're talking about the Lower Decks writers, directors, and whoever is thinking these stories up. That it seems like maybe that is what they're thinking. Maybe talking about sex all the time makes us mature. But I look at it altogether different. I look at it as you are far more immature to continuously talk about sex. It would be different if we saw a couple who loved one another and you see them getting in the bed or giving each other that look or anything like that. But just to keep talking about sex and say in our in our world, one of the chief duties of a monarch is to produce an heir. This is true. And his mother produced an heir. The heir doesn't want the monarchy. That's the problem. So this is why in a lot of monarchies, they say have an heir and a spare. So you know, if you throw all your eggs in one basket, you can get disappointed. And this is where we are with Billups and his mama. She's disappointed because she's not puppeting him. But again, we know if this is the type of culture that you have, that you live in a monarchy and you are the monarch and you don't want to sit on the throne for your entire life. You have the heir, you have the spare, and then who knows? Both of them might disappoint you, like Spock and his sister. But having my mother push me to have sex would give me performance issues too. Exactly. Yeah, she needed a spare. I look, it's just like this. When I was a young girl, and I'm pretty sure this is true for a lot of a lot of young people, the more your parents tell you to do something, the less you want to do it. And whatever they tell you not to do, I'm wondering why you telling me not to do it. I was maybe that kid. So now, when I got the talk from my dad, my mother was deceased. The talk was stay away from boys. stay away from boys. They, and it was all horrible stuff. And I guess my daddy was like, if one way I'm going to make sure that she don't do this, this, and this, is I'm going to scare the hell out of her. And for me, it worked. It worked for a long time, but it's not going to work forever. At some point, what you're being told to do, or what you're being told not to do, starts to look far more attractive. So if she would just shut up. Just shut up. Because honestly, like with him and Ransom, I thought Billups might have been gay because Billups was pretty much worshiping at the feet of Ransom. It's like he really looked up to him, and everything that he did, he paid attention to. I thought he had a little thing for Ransom, and maybe that's why. But she was throwing guys and girls at him. And he was like, and just because you're gay or straight or anything, just because somebody throws some at you don't mean you got to catch it. So I get it. So if the man is asexual and he okay with not having sex for the rest of his life, the manipulation of his mother is not going to be what pushes him over the edge. And this was a crazy exercise in, I don't know what you're trying to explain. I have no idea what they're trying to get across by this whole sex talk. Unless, again, it's just to show how grown we are. We're so grown and so edgy. We're going to talk about sex. Edgy, is one thing. It's edgy for Trek, anyway. It's edgy for Trek. But it's an unnecessary thing to keep going back to this subject. So we're gonna see what this tomorrow's mirror universe type episode looks like, and I think from there we don't really have that many more episodes to go. Maybe 2 after tomorrow. Let me take a look, see how many episodes are expected. If you know before I look it up, let me know. Okay. So yeah, the season ends on October 14th. And yeah, the season ends on October 14th, so we've got a couple episodes after I Excretus, and again, I'm ready to see how we wrap things up. I hope we come back next season with our big boy and big girl pants on and are ready to talk about something that doesn't possibly it doesn't have a sexual overtone in many episodes, simply because I'm tired of hearing about it. I think it is just too easy. Yeah, it's easy. I didn't realize that might be one of those puns or double entendres that I was talking about. But yes. So let me know in the comments below, if you're watching this on the rebroadcast, what your thoughts were on Where Pleasant Fountains Lie. I have no clue what the Pleasant Fountain is. Let me know if you were as excited as I was to see or to hear Jeffrey Combs' voice as the computer Agamus. And again, I want to see him return maybe as Agamus. Maybe we should have him be the big bad of season 3, where he gets all these computers joined together and they band together to make one super Voltron computer, and they go off and try to take over the universe together. Hopefully something, we just putting that out there, Lower Decks people, you can write that up. You don't have to credit me. But if we don't get him there, I'd like to get him in any capacity coming back to Star Trek Lower Decks, to Star Trek period. I just want Jeffrey Combs. I just want him to to show up in every iteration of Star Trek after DS9, where he made so much noise in that one. So, let me know what you think in the comments. If there's anything that you would like to explore more about Lower Decks or any Star Trek, please put that down there as well. And while you're in the comments, please hit the subscribe button. Hang out with me weekly as we talk about the new Trek that is coming out and other things. I do a lot of movie reviews. And then sometimes we sit around and just talk entertainment. It's a fun time. Join me. I'm going to, for just 1 second, give a shout out to my patrons. If I can find it might get a little quiet when I give a shout out to my patrons. So, let me see. Of course, my patrons is not showing up. You know what? Y'all know who my patrons are. I got about 5 of them. I want to, you know what? I can put it up. It ain't no big deal. Let's just add something for my patrons here, because I do want to make sure that I am thanking everyone who is giving me support, because you don't have to, and yet you do, and I appreciate it. So, all right, and that was my shout out to my patrons. If you'd like to be a patron, you can go over to patreon.com/Tasha Pierce and choose a tier, and I will appreciate you as well. But I appreciate you anyway for joining me, being here with me. And Angus Osano, you gave me that Karen review. If there's any other movie reviews you like, I would like to do one that didn't suck for you. So let me know in the future if there's anything else I can do for you. And with all that being said, I've got nothing else. I will try not to be lazy this week. I'm having a better week. Last week sucked. It did. It sucked. You can join me also Friday night on Facebook, my film review Fridays. I am going to be talking about Venom, Let There Be Carnage. That is at 7 p.m. on Friday night. That's Central Time as well. On Friday night on Facebook. And on YouTube on Saturdays, I do the weekly wrap-up, and where we close out the week in entertainment. And we talk about Marvel's What If and DC's Titans. And one of them I've been over the moon about, and the other one is meh. And you can join me Saturday to find out which is which. With all that, I've got nothing else. I appreciate you for hanging out with me today. And I will see you in the next one. Live long and prosper. Peace.